Jesus really revealed the name of the Antichrist? I report, you decide. This is an updated and more accurate and understandable version of my previous upload on this same topic. In Luke chapter 10 verse 18, we read these words of Jesus. And he said unto them, I beheld Satan as lightning fall from heaven. These words are written in Greek and translated to English. However, Jesus probably spoke these words in Aramaic. Aramaic is a part of the Northwest Semitic group of languages, which also includes Hebrew. Aramaic script was widely adopted for other languages and is ancestral to the Arabic and Hebrew alphabets. Two words in this text are of particular interest. The words are lightning and heaven. Jesus said, I saw Satan falling as lightning from heaven. In Greek, the word for lightning is astrape. It has a direct Hebrew equivalent. From Strong's Hebrew Dictionary, words 1299 and 1300 from the Hebrew language, the word for lightning is barak. In the Greek text of Luke chapter 10, the word translated as heaven in Greek is uranos. It can mean the heaven of God, but it also carries with it the connotation of the heights, or a high place, or the domain of Satan himself. Evidence of this is found in the same book of Luke, in chapter 8, verse 5, when Jesus speaks of the gospel being attacked demonically. He uses these words, and the birds of the air devoured it. Here, the most accepted context by biblical scholars is that the birds are the demonic realm and the air is the realm of Satan, from on high, or the heights. The Greek word used here for air is uranos, evidence that this Greek word is not always used in the sense of the heaven of God, but it can be used for the heights or the high places or the domain of Satan himself. In Luke chapter 10 verse 18, this is the exact context of Jesus' words. I saw Satan falling like lightning from the heights or the high places, or from Satan's domain on high, or from the heavens or heaven. If Jesus' word, translated in the English text as heaven, was referring to the heaven of God, the Hebrew word would be shamayim. More than likely, though, according to the context of Luke 10 and Luke 8, Jesus was not referring to the shamayim of God, but rather the domain of Satan. Now consider this amazing fact. The book of Isaiah is the source of origin for the Christian concept of Satan or Lucifer. In Isaiah chapter 14, verses 12 through 19 especially. In Isaiah chapter 14, verse 14, we hear these words spoken by Satan himself. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will be like the Most High. This matches the exact context of Jesus' words in Luke chapter 10. In the verses of Isaiah that refer directly to Lucifer, several times it is mentioned that Satan has fallen from the heights or from the heavens. The Hebrew word used in this text for the heights from which Satan fell is Hebrew word number 1116 in the Strong's Hebrew Dictionary, and it is pronounced Bama. Bama is most commonly used to refer to a high sacred place, as well as to the heights of the heavens or clouds. So in Jesus' prophecy of Luke chapter 10 verse 18, if spoken by a Jewish rabbi in Hebrew, influenced by the poetry of Isaiah, he would use, in one form or another, depending upon the exact wording and context, the words that come from the root forms of these two Hebrew words, barak and bama, to describe Satan falling like lightning from on high. Hebrew for lightning is barak, and Hebrew for the heights or the high places is bama. This fact is indisputable. So is Jesus actually giving us a clue as to who the future Antichrist might be? Many believe so. It is possible that it is merely a strange coincidence. Yet it cannot be denied. If Hebrew words were used to describe Jesus' statement about Satan falling or coming to earth, perhaps as a man in the form of the Antichrist, the Hebrew words barak and bama would be used.
Now, Daniel's timeline, we've determined that 2013 is the midst of the week when the abomination and the altar is shut down. The next thing that comes up is the midst of the week. Now, we've seen what the midst of the week, it was the last 7 years of that 70 weeks, or that 70 years. Now, so when in 2013 does the tribulation start? What season will it be? How can we know? The counting of years, we're counting years, but now we're going to be counting actual days, according to Daniel, counting actual days. Now, but if this 2013 and the midst of the week must be consistent with each other. This have to match with this, and this has to match with that. If it doesn't match, then 2013 cannot be the right year. It cannot be. It's got to complement each other. It's got to fit. It's got to match. It's like when God reveals His truth, all the prophecy pieces just fall in place all by themselves. All we got to do is just stay out of the way and watch Him work. So now we're going to get into the midst of the week right now. This is our Daniel's chart. This is our prophetic baseline. We're going to be focusing on this 7-year period, this prophetic week. Our focal point is actually going to be on this last 3.5 years. The last 3.5 years. This is when the altar shut down, the abomination is done. This is our focal point. This is the key that's given for the day counts. Now we're going to spread out this little chart right here and start plotting the days, just like we did the years. We're going to start plotting days. Here's our marker for the midst of the week. Here's our marker for the return of the Lord, 2013 to 2016, and here's our black marker right here for the blessed day. This is the day that God's rest starts, and we're counting by days now. We're strictly counting by days. In Daniel 11, it says that the arm shall stand on his part, and they shall pollute the sanctuary of the strength, and shall take away the daily sacrifice, and they shall place the abomination that maketh desolate. We have two things going on here. We have a daily sacrifice stopped, and we have an abomination placed. We only had one marker, so we're putting an additional marker there for the second action that happens. We have one action, the sacrifice. We have a second action that some kind of abomination is done that makes Jerusalem desolate. This is where this is a picture of the Western Wall here and the Temple Mount. This is where the Temple Mount used to stand, right over here. And if you can see in the background, I hope you can see this, but in the background over here, that is the Mount of Olives. That's how close it is over there. It's not like it's a long way away. Things are close. Things are close. When the Lord comes back, most likely these grove of trees will be probably taken out. But anyway, this is the Western Wall. Now let's continue on with our information here, our counting of days. In Daniel 9:27, we read this one earlier. It says that he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week, and in the midst of the week he shall cause the sacrifice and oblation to cease, and for the overspreading of abominations he shall make it desolate. Okay, we have the altar shut down, and it says an abomination shall make Jerusalem desolate. Those that be in the mountain in Judea flee into the mountains. Anyway, it's made desolate right here. Not at the altar, but it's at the abomination. Daniel 12, it says, and from the time that the daily sacrifice be taken away, and the abomination that maketh desolate, there shall be 1,290 days. And blessed is he that waiteth and cometh to the 1,335th day. So this is all pertaining to this altar marker right here. First of all, we have 2 day counts. First of all, we have a 1,335 day. It says it's a blessed day to last all the way to there. We know that's the wedding date. That's our given date. That is a blessed day. And then we have the 1,290th day from the altar to the end of tribulation right here. That's how that plots. This is our given date. We know that the blessed day is the wedding day, and we know according to the Jewish calendars what day that the Feast of Tabernacles or Sukkot or the wedding day falls. That's our given day. Just like the Manna Week, when we had 2/15 was our given date, this is our given date here. We know when this happens. from 1,335 days to 1,290 days, we see that this little gap right here that we didn't know whether it was a year or what, we see that it's 45 days. Just subtracting the two shows that that's a 45-day period right there. Now, let's go to the next verses. Matthew, this is the Lord's words. Matthew 24. When ye therefore shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet, the Lord is going back and quoting Daniel, referring to Daniel, spoken of by Daniel the prophet, stand in the holy place, some kind of image on this temple mount, some kind of abomination sets up. Whosoever readeth, let him understand. Them that be in Judea, flee into the mountains. So the fleeing is going to be right here. It says when the abomination is done, the fleeing starts. Not here. Things are applying to this marker here, the abomination. Yeshua also says, but pray that your flight not be in the winter, neither on the Sabbath. For then shall be great tribulation, which was not since the beginning of the world, no, nor ever shall be. He said, pray that your flight not be in the winter, and neither on the Sabbath, right here. He says, and that our winter is over. Every March the 21st is when winter is over. That's when it says the Great Tribulation starts right there, at the fleeing, right at the flight. So this must be this is the end of tribulation right over here. Now, in Revelation 12 it says the woman fled into the wilderness. Here's the fleeing part. Here's the fleeing. The woman fled into the wilderness where she had a place prepared of God that they should feed her there 1,260 days. We have another set of days here. 60, 1 score. A score is 20. So 1,260 days. 1,260 days. So from the fleeing part, according to John in Revelation, from the fleeing part is a 1,260-day period right there to there, where the woman is fed for 1,260 days till the end of tribulation. Now it's pretty easy to look here now to see how much of a gap this is. If from there to there is 1,290 days, and from there to there is 1,260 days, we see that this gap over here between the time the altar is shut down to the abomination is set up, it shows, according to Daniel's day counts, that is a 30-day period right there. And the woman and the serpent, let's go to that, Revelation 12, and the serpent cast out of his mouth water as a flood after the woman, that he might cause her to be carried away the flood, and the earth helped the woman, and the earth opened her mouth and swallowed the flood which the dragon cast out of his mouth. So there's a flood right here too. In Jerusalem, around springtime, there is a lot of rain, and it rushes down, I believe, into the Dead Sea. I'm not going to get into that because I'm not really fully sure of exactly when this rain starts, but it's said, I've heard it said that this is a rainy time of the season for over there. Now, in Revelation 11, he says, God says, I will give my power unto my 2 witnesses, and they shall prophesy 1,260 days. That's exactly the same of days right there. Clothed in sackcloth, these are the 2 olive trees and the 2 candlesticks to standing before the God of the earth. The same amount of period of time. This 1,260 day is given there. So this is when that altar and that abomination is set up. That's when the 2 witnesses stand up and start their 1,260 days of prophesying. They have the power to shut the heavens up from rain and cast as many plagues on the earth as they will. Now we're back to the Lord's words here again. In Matthew 24, he said, immediately after the tribulation of those days, the sun and the moon shall be darkened, the moon shall not give her light, and the stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of heaven shall be shaken, and then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man coming in heaven. In other words, it says immediately after tribulation. It says let's go back and read that one more time. Immediately after tribulation, they'll see the Son of Man coming in heaven. Immediately after tribulation, and then shall appear the sign of man in heaven. These are the days after tribulation. This says there's a 45-day period from the end of tribulation until the wedding feast. What we need to find out is that spot right there. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We have about 8 or 9 different indicators of what this day will be like. We have abomination, we have desolate, we have fleeing, we have tribulation beginning, we have winter is over, it's not on the Sabbath. There's a lot going on. There's a flood. Everything's going on right here at this hinge. We need to find that hinge. Let's look at something that's very, very interesting, that's a likeness of what these things describe. I hope you can read this on your screen. This is pretty small to get it all on this one screen here, but I didn't have any other way to do it. It says, a lamb was brought forth into the house on this day and kept and killed on the very first Passover. This is and then all the firstborn of the land of Egypt was killed, who didn't have the lamb's blood on the doorpost. And then right after that, Israel departed into the wilderness on the Exodus. God parted the Red Sea, and Israel crossed over on dry ground. We're talking about the same language here. We're talking about a lamb. We're talking about a house. This is God's house. We're talking about Israel going into their new homes in the Promised Land. We're talking about a sacrifice. We have blood, the firstborn, fleeing, water, war, death. All of these things is the picture likeness, is a word picture of what you're seeing right here. Now, 40 years later, after Israel crossed over the Red Sea and wandered around the wilderness, God dried up the Jordan River for Israel. This is under Joshua's leadership. And God's firstborn crossed over on dry ground to take possession of the Promised Land in their homes. And there was a lot of bloodshed and a lot of war so they could take over these possessions here. So we have the same language going on here again 40 years later. And we also have the same miracle happen. God dried up the Red Sea. They crossed over. He dried up the Jordan River. He crossed over. There's a flood going to happen here that God's going to help, and the earth's going to swallow it up too. So it's the same type of language. Also, we come to Yeshua, the first begotten Son. He rode into Jerusalem, it says, the Lamb presented for the inspection into God's house before he was crucified 4 days later. We even have Yeshua riding in, and he was the acceptable sacrifice. He was not an abomination. He was brought there for it. That's why he rode in. He was the lamb inspected before the sacrifice was to happen. They didn't know what they were doing, but that's spiritually what it represented. And now we come to an unacceptable lamb or image of some kind we brought into God's house and presented for inspection and set up on the Temple Mount. This abomination starts, tribulation causes those in Judea to flee as God causes the flood waters to be swallowed up as was the times before. Now, when they brought the lamb into the house before the first Passover, before Israel left Egypt, it was on Nisan the 10th they were commanded to bring it in the house. But now whenever Joshua led the children of Israel across the Jordan River, and the Jordan River dried up, they crossed over dry shod over that river, that was also Nisan the 10th. When Yeshua rode into Jerusalem on that little colt of an ass, he rode into Jerusalem, that was also Nisan the 10th. Obviously, this unacceptable image is called a lamb with 2 horns, and lambs don't have horns. This is obviously an unacceptable sacrifice or unacceptable image some kind is brought into God's house on Nisan the 10th also. So what we've got here, we've got all this information, all these clues, and it all points to Nisan the 10th. And it also points to that it's in after winter time. It's in March the 21st. Now, it has to be Nisan the 10th or March the 21st or later, after winter's over with. So let's bring down our markers again. Here's the altar. Here's the wedding feast, the one known blessed day that we know. And here's the abomination when the abomination is done. So according to the scriptures, all we have to do to find this spot is start at some wedding feast, some blessed day, and simply count back 1,335 days. That brings us to the altar. Or, to find the image date, we count backwards 1,305 days, brings us to the image date. Another way to find the image date is count the full 1,335 back to the altar and then count forward 30 days. It's all going to bring us to this point right here. This is the gateway. This is the door, one of the doors that no man opened unless God opens it, and no man can close it unless God closes it, right here. We find this doorway right here, and we found when the Great Tribulation starts. Now, according to the information we've been given through Daniel, in the other scriptures, it says this date is Nisan the 10th. It's not in the winter. If it's not in the winter, then it's on our March 21st or later. It's not on the Sabbath. It's before Passover. If it's March the 10th, that's obviously before Passover. This vision of Revelation 12 where the woman flees has to take place. It has to fit Daniel's timeline. It must be in 2013. In other words, it has to fit these day counts that's been given to us in Daniel. And it also has to be in the year 2013, as according to the prophecies in Daniel and the fig tree nation that came about. And all this has to fit. So, if we remember back on our Hebrew calendars, now our focus is going to be on these last 7 years. Matter of fact, these last 3.5 years. The Hebrew calendar was based on lunar. The Hebrew years will have 12 or 13 months. It varies. The Gregorian calendar is solar-based. It always has 365 unless it's a leap year. And these two different methods of calculation always makes these calendars inconsistent with each other. So what we have to do, well, this is an example first. The Feast of Tribulation, which is the wedding feast, this right here, always falls on the Hebrew date 7/15 every year. But it falls on a different Gregorian date each year. It falls somewhere in September, October of the Gregorian calendar. So what we have to do is find this date that is compliant with these Nisan the 10th and also March the 21st are not in winter time. So in order to do that, we just simply look at this 3.5 year set right here. So we just look at different 3.5 year sets using the wedding feast as our marker. We're just plotting 3.5 year sections here that we're going to analyze. Now the wedding feast always happens on 7/15 on God's calendar or the Hebrew calendar, right here, and you just start right here and just count backwards 1,305 days and see where it brings us to. Will it be Nisan the 10th, not in the winter, not on the Sabbath? Let's see where it brings, to see if it fits the prophecies. So we'll start out with 2004. 3.5 years later is 2007. We just look at our one given dates that we know. The Feast of Tabernacles, or the wedding feast in 2007, happens to be on September the 27th. You can go to any calendar program, any library, anywhere, and get these same dates. September the 27th in 2007 happens to be the day that the Feast of Tabernacles begins. It falls on. So just count back 1,305 days to see what this date is. This date happens to fall on March the 2nd, 2004, and it's the Hebrew date, Adar the 9th, which is the 12th month, the Hebrew's 12th month. So that doesn't match. It doesn't fit the prophecies. Let's try another set of 3.5 years, 2005 to 2008. The wedding feast that year in 2008 happens to fall on October the 14th. Count back 305 days, we come to March the 20th. That could hit. That's pretty close. That's pretty close. Let's see what it is falls on the Hebrew calendar. If it falls on Nisan the 10th, we have a match. And it falls on, this is one particular year they happen to have a 13-month year. It falls on 2nd Adar the 9th, so that doesn't match. Let's go to the next set, 2009 to 2012. The Feast of Tabernacles that year is October the 1st. Back 1,305 days is to March the 7th, Adar the 11th. That's no match. Now let's look at the 2013, the year that Daniel gave us, the year for the Daniel prophecies. 2013 to 2016. And according to Daniel's years, 2013 began The Great Tribulation in the midst of the week, right there. And according to Daniel's timeline, 2016 was the Lord's return. That little red marker right there. So let's see what the Feast of Tabernacles here. The Feast of Tabernacles is on October the 17th this year in 2016. Now let's go to the March calendar. We're going to go to a March calendar in 2013. Here it is. March the 1st falls on a Friday. The end of winter is right there on Thursday, March the 21st. The next day is the winter ends here. Here's the Sabbath. You should have said that your flight not being the winter, then you go on the Sabbath. So there's those 2 dates, or those 2 days. We're going to lay the Hebrew calendar in now on top of the March Roman calendar. Adar the 20th falls on March the 1st. We're just simply counting on forward. Here's Nisan the 1st falls on March the 12th. Right on through. That's amazing right there. Utterly amazing. Now, here's Passover, and here's unleavened bread. And our tabernacles, here's our given date, is October the 17th. 2016 is October the 17th. Our Feast of Tabernacles, or the wedding feast, are called a blessed day. Now, simply all we do now is count backwards 1,305 days from here to there to see what date it comes up. It can't fall here, can't fall here, can't fall here, can't fall here. It could fall here or here. It could fall, it can't fall here. It's got to be before the Passover. It's got to match the Passover. I mean, Israel fled here. They left Egypt here. It's got to be before that. I mean, there's not much hope. I mean, there's not much room there. There's plenty of hope, but there's not much room for this to hit. Now, Daniel's timeline, 2013, fit in the midst of the week, fit the day and the hour that no man knoweth, happens to be the Feast of Trumpets, 2016, after the tribulation. We have a consistent, perfect match on all of this. All of this complements each other. None of it is contradictory. All the prophecy fell into place, all on its own. There was nothing forced in anywhere. Just like God plans it. If God plans it, if it's God's truth, everything falls into place. All we have to do is just stay out of the way and watch it happen.
Hey guys, what's up? Jason William Egroff here, Defender of the Prophets, RevelationNews.net. Now, first of all, I want to say right off the bat, I don't wholly endorse or, I'm not endorsing Dewey Bruton's Daniel's timeline. I'm not doing that here. If you really analyze it, for one thing a critic could say about it is there isn't a temple and they're not doing sacrifices. However, there are reports out there that they've been secretly doing sacrifices. You can look it up, but the information's out there. I personally didn't hear of anything like that taking place until I stumbled upon this Daniel's timeline from Dr. Elizabeth Motke from Tribulation News. So I am by no means endorsing this presentation. However, a lot of the way this is mapped out, and I encourage you to do a study of this yourself. Go to YouTube and just type in Daniel's timeline, and there's a link. It's the full presentation. You could find it. It's readily available. It's about 2 hours long. It's very in-depth. And from what I could see, there's something to it. I personally think that there could be something to it. But what blew me away was the timing of when he said the midst of the week would be. Daniel's prophetic week. Guys, it's literally right in the time frame of when Obama is going to be going to Israel. Now, that to me, I mean, this guy put this together back in 2000, and the live presentation that was in this video was given in 2005. Now, to me, that's pretty incredible. There has got to be something to that. So, will it be the setting up of the image? They're making a giant ice statue of Obama? I mean, that's more than a little odd, in my opinion. But so imagine a scenario where he's giving a speech at the Temple Mount, and they got this image of him in ice. I mean, and then imagine him perhaps reading some scriptures. I think this is going to be a very interesting visit, guys. I really do. Which is why I saw so many of these things lining up with this visit. 5 days before Passover, he's entering Jerusalem. Obama is. I mean, there's too many indicators here. Just way too many. It's like red flags all over the place. And then you got the meteor shower that happened back on February 15th. I mean, it's a flood. These signs can't just be coincidental stuff. In my mind, it can't be. It just can't be. And in the Hebrew language, there is no such word as coincidence, by the way. So, this is what I got, guys. I want to thank Dewey Bruton for putting together his work, and I want to also thank the author of Did Jesus Reveal the Name of the Antichrist? That's another video that, I put the whole thing in there for you to check that out. But this was just a little presentation that I wanted to put together because I see this. To me, this is as clear as day to me that something big is going to happen in March, and specifically with this visit that Obama's going to. Something big is going to happen. I just feel it. So, the Watchmen are telling you, and that's what I call myself. So, here I am, sounding the alarm, and God bless all you guys. Just keep watching. Exciting times we're living in, that's for sure. So just keep watching, guys, and keep looking up. God bless, in the name of Yeshua.